Tonight on Reporting Scotland, more than 7,000 reports of hate crimes were made to the police in the first week of the new laws. Only 240 of those were judged to be crimes. The Scottish Government and campaigners have been defending the legislation.
Anybody who'd been spat at or kicked or picked their children up from the street beaten up can never tell you it's not necessary.
But critics say it's a waste of police time, also on tonight's programme.
I think the general feedback is that people are confused.
Has the government banned wood-burning stoves in new builds? We try to get to the bottom of the confusion. A warning that the incessant wet weather is taking a toll on lambing season.
Coming up in sport, Rangers accuse Dundee of negligence and unprofessionalism after the match between the sides is called off for the second time.
And we'll tell you the tale of how Scotland's women's rugby team managed to organise the 1994 World Cup in 6 months flat. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. It's 10 days since controversial new hate crime laws came into force, and today we got a bit more information about how the legislation is bedding in. In the first 7 days, the police received a total of 7,152 online hate reports. From that number, a total of 240 hate crimes were recorded. Police Scotland said the vast majority of the reports were anonymous, and despite what they called a substantial increase, the impact on frontline policing had been minimal. Our political correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart has more.
In recent weeks, billboards went up encouraging Scots to report hate crime, and they've done so in their thousands, over 7,000 to be exact. This morning, the Justice Secretary met with older people from ethnic minority groups. Professor Makami Macrum says a strengthening of hate crime law is overdue.
Anybody who'd been spat at or kicked or picked their children up from the street beaten up can never tell you it's not necessary. It's only people who live in the comfort zone of not facing racism who can say that, or ageism, or any other ism that is protected.
The Justice Secretary has defended police investigating all complaints, even though just 3% reached the threshold of hate crime in the first week.
They've had a substantial increase in the number of hate crimes that are normally reported, but you will also see that the situation has been managed well by Police Scotland. We're beginning to see a decrease in the hate crime reports made to Police Scotland, and therefore I would like to reiterate the message that hate crime is often underreported by the communities who actually experience it.
That's not reassured the Scottish Conservatives, who want to see the new legislation repealed.
So this is a shambolic piece of legislation that was brought on by Humza Yousaf as Justice Secretary, has now been implemented by Humza Yousaf as First Minister, and it is clearly not working. It is causing so much strain on our already overstretched police officers that it has to be binned.
A similar warning is being sounded by the union that represents police officers.
There is absolutely no doubt the impact of nearly 8,000 calls in 10 days will affect the service that we can provide, purely on an availability of police officers, something as simple as that, but also there will be a financial impact later on this year. And because of what's happening at the moment, we will be unable to do something else later on. So I would encourage those members of the public who are reporting anonymously or who are making vexatious remarks to the police or making political points or protest points, please don't do that.
MSPs will no doubt still be talking about this legislation when they come back here to Holyrood after recess next week. By then we may have more Police Scotland figures, which could give a clearer idea of how this new law is bedding in. David Wallace-Lockhart, Reporting Scotland, Holyrood.
Well, let's get a bit more analysis from David, who is still at Holyrood for us tonight. David, in broad terms then, what do these figures from the police tell us?
Well, Laura, important to say these are just 1 week's figures. Though that 240 crimes police have identified, it does seem to be an uptick on previous years. It appears that race seems to be the single biggest factor here. But let's remember, there was a big publicity campaign, lots of media coverage around this new law, so perhaps no surprise that there's been a larger number of complaints. Now, when it comes to the legislation, we heard a lot of concerns about the police time this could potentially eat up. That is something that may well calm down over time. But there were also concerns around free speech, specifically around that stirring up of hatred offence relating to certain protected characteristics. Now, if we put race to one side, which has been a protected characteristic for decades, then it appears that only 8 of those 240 crimes that police think they've identified actually related to that stirring up of hatred offence. So perhaps, at least in this first batch of hate crime figures, those concerns around free speech at this point not really playing out.
OK, David at Hollywood, thank you. To some of the day's other stories now. And a fatal accident inquiry is to take place into the death of serial killer Peter Tobin. The 76-year-old died in hospital in 2022, a month after suffering a fall in prison. Tobin was serving multiple life sentences for the murders of Vicky Hamilton, Dinah McNichol and Angelina Klook. He'd been receiving palliative care for cancer. FAIs are mandatory for prisoner deaths. And a drug dealer from Fraserburgh has been jailed for 7 years after her 3-month-old son died after ingesting narcotics. 32-year-old Amy Beck exposed Ollie James' Sivrite to methadone and MDMA between September and December of 2019. A post-mortem heard the boy died from ingesting the drugs and the effects of peritonitis. The trial heard that her former home in Sandhaven was polluted by drugs. Now, wood-burning stoves are for some a luxury, but for others an essential. However, their place in homes of the future is unclear. Regulations, which came into force at the start of the month, broadly ban them from new-build houses as a way of trying to reduce our climate emissions. But some in rural communities and the construction industry say the rules are causing confusion, as Ailey Davis reports.
New legislation came into effect on the 1st of April, but it has caused a lot of confusion. The new rules ban wood-burning stoves as well as oil and gas boilers from new homes. Instead, the government wants builders, like on this new estate in Inverness, to install more environmentally friendly systems like air source heating pumps.
The houses that we design are to such a high standard that it goes hand in hand with air source technology. It effectively eradicates the requirement for any secondary heating system. And that's one of the significant benefits that the end user, the customer, is going to get.
Wood-burning stoves are widely used in rural Scotland where there's no gas supply, and they provide an alternate heat source during power cuts. And although the new rules don't affect wood burners either already in or being installed in existing houses, the talk of a ban has caused consternation.
People are confused, and people are, you know, they were unaware of this coming into force, but equally they're just concerned long term what it means for them to own a wood burning stove, or if they're planning on building a house, what that means for them in terms of can they actually have a stove.
The Scottish Government says wood-burning stoves can't be installed in new-build homes unless to provide emergency heating where a need can be justified. That involves applying to your local authority for permission.
In rural Scotland, there's a lot of self-build by housing associations, by community landowners and by individuals. And I think they should be able, in certain circumstances, to make the case for putting in a biomass log wood source of heating. It is sustainable.
The Scottish Government has said wood burners are allowed in some circumstances.
It is for local authorities to implement and enforce the building standards. This is about new developments, new housing developments and other buildings that go up. They need to have a clean heating system as their principal system. And we recognise that in some parts of the country, a backup or emergency heat system is necessary, and wood burning could be part of that.
Ailey Davis, reporting Scotland, Inverness.
A Labour candidate who'd been accused of liking and reposting tweets that have been described as racist and Islamophobic has been suspended. Wilma Brown was hoping to take the Cowdenbeath and Kirkcaldy seat for her party at the next general election, but Labour say they're now investigating. Well, our political correspondent Andrew Kerr is here. Andrew, how did this story develop then?
Yes, well, a Fife man, Adam LeGrice, said that he wanted to take a look at the background and the views of his own local candidate. Now, Wilma Brown is well known locally and has campaigned with the Scottish and UK Labour leaders, as we can see here. Now, Mr LeGrice posted a series of screen grabs from her account, and he said that posts she liked or reposted were racist, transphobic and Islamophobic. Now, some did concern the First Minister. The account was deleted in the morning and she was suspended by Labour by the mid-afternoon. And the party say they take all complaints seriously and any appropriate action is indeed taken.
OK, and we were reporting last night, viewers might remember, on another issue that Labour have.
That's right. Audrey Dempsey, a Glasgow City Labour councillor, was accused of racist remarks and was suspended by the party yesterday. She said she'd asked an honest question. Now, Laura, Labour will want to be seen to be acting quickly with these incidents. Turning back to Fife, the SNP were saying that Wilma Brown must be sacked. The Conservatives said her tweets were indefensible. Now, there's plenty of time for Labour to choose another candidate if they wish to do so, because, of course, we don't yet know the date of this general election.
Yeah, indeed. We'll see how this develops then. OK, thank you, Andrew. Tonight's main news again. More than 7,000 online reports of hate crimes were made to the police in the first week of new laws.
And coming up in sport, Rangers accuse Dundee of negligence and unprofessionalism after the match between the sides is called off for the second time. Now, it's been a busy time for farmers and crofters, with lambing in full flow across the country. Scenes like these are adorable, of course, but it's not been an easy time for lambing. Incessant rain is having a devastating impact on Scotland's farming communities, according to the organisation which represents the industry here. Our reporter Rachel Bell has more.
Taking its first few breaths, the newest addition to this farm near Huntly in Aberdeenshire.
This is the last few ewes that we've got left to lamb here. It's been very quick, very intense.
This is the first year Nicola Wordy has lambed her entire flock indoors. This new shed providing some much needed shelter from the elements.
If we were lambing outside in this year, in this weather, I dread to think the losses that we'd be facing. We're very fortunate we're able to get the lambs born in a dry, warm environment, but they still have to go outside. Unfortunately, we can't keep them all inside, and that does mean that we still do have losses outside, unfortunately.
The poor weather of the last few months has taken its toll on all aspects of farming life.
We can't get any work done, we can't get any ploughing done, we can't get any crops in the ground. It's just everything's starting to pile up, and it is becoming really challenging. Every day you're dreading to think what's going to happen, how bad it's going to be, and it plays on your mind a lot.
Up and down the country, the picture has been the same.
Jam here, live for the tractor seat, and as you can see, pretty dreich out there today.
It's just been an absolute disaster of a morning. I think that must be the most rain we've had yet in a night. Found a wee bit on that wee lump of concrete there to get a dry bed for the night.
Today, the Farmers' Union NFU Scotland launched its manifesto ahead of a general election, setting out what it thinks political parties can do to help the industry.
There's challenges with all governments, but one thing they can't do is change the weather. But they need to be able to facilitate us to adapt to that, whether it comes with grant systems that are maybe no longer not available at the present time. We need to make sure that continued support comes into agriculture and recognition of what farming's doing.
It's been a really difficult start to the year for Nicola and many farmers across Scotland. And in an industry almost entirely dependent on the weather, there are real hopes for some better days ahead. Rachel Bell, reporting Scotland, Aberdeenshire.
Now, what could you achieve in 90 days? Well, how about staging a Rugby World Cup? Back in 1994, when the Netherlands pulled out of hosting the Women's Rugby World Cup, the Scotland women's team stepped in, desperate to play more international games. It was a decision which sparked much more interest in the women's game, and the story behind their determination to make it happen has now inspired a play, as Aileen Clark reports.
1994 at the Megatland pitch in Edinburgh, and Sue Brodie strides out to score a Scottish try against Russia. But just getting the Russians here had been one of the many last-minute issues the Scotland squad and the local community had come together to sort.
Amazing response, you know, so there was a coach company that was going down to Manchester Airport to take people there. They would pick the Russian team up and bring them back to Edinburgh. It was St John's nursing home in Livingston that happened to be the Easter holidays, so they had all these empty bedrooms, so all the Russian team stayed there, which turned out to be right next door to Livingston Rugby Club.
I thought we played really well. We played at skins.
Scotland captain Kim Littlejohn was constantly on TV. That coverage and the crowds a turning point.
When we ran out of the tunnel here, there was people there supporting us and cheering for us. So when we came out, there was a change in the volume of sound. It was amazing. It was really special time.
Scotland ended up with two teams in the tournament, a quickly put together Scottish Universities team plugging the gap when Spain pulled out.
It was 2 weeks before my final dissertation. I was at Heriot-Watt University. I got a phone call at home, and it's our coach from the club saying, Steve Cully, saying, what are you doing the next 2 weeks? Would you like to play in a Rugby World Cup? So the answer obviously was yes. It was a great experience. I thought, I'm going to stick in, train hard, get into the international team.
And you did?
Yes, that's right. Got to play in the 98 World Cup, got to play in Europeans and the Six Nations.
Let's go, nothing will make us stop. We're playing in the World Cup.
Now this story of determination and passion for their sport has been turned into a stage play, 90 Days, premiering this weekend in Edinburgh.
Do you remember this?
Yes. Oh, yes. That's seen a few outings.
It has seen a few outings.
The photos that we've got, how happy we were in our black watch tartan uniforms, you know, celebrating the fact that we just lost against England. But actually, that we were just celebrating, you know, everything about that World Championships. It was so good.
It just goes to show that this team of women, desperate to play their rugby at international level, put their heads together and managed to bring the tournament to Scotland. And in doing so, they inspired many more women into the sport. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Oh, well, from sporting history to sporting present with Sheila McLaren.
Yes, and Scotland's women doing very well at the moment in Scotland's Six Nations. Big one against England, sold out this weekend.
Oh, good.
Indeed, but we're starting with football this evening, and there's been lots happening today. Rangers have accused Dundee of negligence and unprofessionalism after the match between the sides was called off for the second time. The SPFL says it's already started disciplinary proceedings over the ongoing pitch issues. Well, Brian McLaughlin has spent the day at Dens Park.
Yes, Rangers very unhappy indeed that this match has been postponed for a second time. They're now asking the SPFL to take proportionate and decisive action in accordance with their rules. It was match referee Don Robertson who was here at 11 o'clock this morning. He says at that point the pitch was playable, but at 3:30 and after another heavy bout of rain, he said, sorry, the game is now off.
Yeah, no, the pitch is deteriorated significantly in that time. There was an area of concern, most concern just at the bottom, outside the bottom penalty area. They've then had the covers on that area, an area that they were aware that there was some concerns, and then when I've arrived back this afternoon, that part of the pitch has actually become waterlogged, so the covers unfortunately have not been able to withstand the rain that's arrived this afternoon.
Well, this is the fifth postponement of a match here at Dens Park this season, and the SPFL are investigating the club with a hearing due to take place at some point next week. And I spoke to the club secretary here at Dundee, Eric Drysdale, a short time ago, and he told us what the plans are to try and remedy the situation on the pitch and ensure that this doesn't happen again next season. We do recognise, however, that there is a need for investment in the pitch. Clearly, we can't dig up a pitch in the middle of the season, so we have to do it in closed season, and we are absolutely going to be doing that, and we're in the middle of finalising the investment that is required in the pitch and the work that is required to bring this up to an acceptable standard. So what happens next? Well, we'll try again next Wednesday night. Now, Dundee and Rangers both have plenty to play for this season. The home side here at Dens Park, well, they're battling for a top 6 spot. They're in pole position at the moment. They may even achieve it this Saturday when they go to Pittodrie. If not, then they may need to win here next Wednesday against Rangers. Well, we know the Ibrox club are battling for the Premiership title here in Scotland. It's all going to be happening again next week, weather permitting. Brian McLaughlin reporting Scotland at Dens Park.
Well, Aberdeen have called VAR in Scotland not suitable for purpose after a stoppage time goal by Bojan Miovski against Livingston on Saturday was ruled out for offside. Aberdeen thought they had taken the lead when they scored following a free kick into the box. The Dons say VAR officials had to resort to a freeze frame that didn't provide what they say was the normal degree of certainty because a lack of reliable calibrated lines. Now, last week we saw how our swimmers were going to great lengths to book their places at the Paris Olympic Games. Now we can turn to track and field, and to the discus to be precise, where Glasgow-born Nick Percy is making his mark. The 29-year-old exceeded the Olympic qualifying throwing distance in Oklahoma at the weekend, launching the discus an incredible 67.73 metres, smashing his own Scottish record and going second in the UK all-time list.
It's just nothing that I expected, considering our national record just under 10 years ago was 58 metres. Now it's 67.73. It's a number 2 all time. There's many Olympians on that list who I've dreamed of beating, and people that I've thrown against throughout my career that I hope to be as good as. Now to be further than what they've ever thrown, it is mind-boggling, and hopefully I'll be able to go even further.
A final bit of news, Laura, as if there's not been enough today.
I know.
Aberdeen are closing in on the appointment of Elfsborg boss Jimmy Thelin as their new manager.
Oh, well, Dons fans will be watching that one closely, I imagine.
Yes, it's been dragging on, hasn't it?
Yes, thanks, Sheila. OK, now on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock, Laura Goodwin meets Brodie Brown, a 17-year-old Scottish musician who's overcome physical and mental health problems to be nominated for a top musical award for his song Monsters.
I'm surrounded by monsters screaming in my head.
I've got psychosis, amongst other things. So living with that was obviously very difficult when it first emerged. But I use writing as an outlet to sort of gain confidence and express myself in a positive way.
Yeah, catch that later on the 9. Now the weather with Gillian, that sort of sums things up at the moment, doesn't it?
Do you know, the day started decent enough, but pretty quickly it was a return to cloud and rain. But we'll have a break from the wet weather tomorrow, Laura.
Lovely.
Good evening to you. Yes, today brought wet conditions once again for many of us. Tomorrow will bring something drier, brighter and milder, but we still have a frontal system to get out of the way first. This one which brought today's rain, and still some heavy rain to come for Western Scotland. We have a yellow warning from the Met Office valid until 10 p.m. So difficult road conditions, lots of surface water and spray and a risk of localised flooding. But that rain is on the move, and overnight damp conditions lingering in the far north, but most places becoming dry with clear spells. And temperature-wise, much milder than last night, holding up between 8 and 11 Celsius for most of us. But it will be blustery. In fact, the wind's not far off gale force in the far north and northwest. Now, tomorrow, that cloud and rain in the far north will soon clear, and then a much better day. It's largely dry, bright with some good sunny spells coming through. So this is a snapshot around about 4 o'clock. For the Northern Isles, lots of sunshine, temperatures 11 to 13 Celsius, well up on today. And for northeast Scotland, today we saw 7 Celsius, tomorrow 18. It will be eastern parts seeing the best of the sunshine, because into the west we'll see some areas of cloud filtering in, especially during the second half of the afternoon and into the evening. But still 14 to 16 Celsius. It is mild. It will be windy though, with fresh to strong southwesterly winds, which through tomorrow evening and night will bring areas of cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain. By the time we get to Friday morning, most of that will have cleared. We'll start on a largely dry, bright note, but through the day again we'll see cloud increasing, showery outbreaks of rain moving in from the southwest, heavy at times, particularly across western Scotland. Best of the brightness in the north and northeast, again lifting temperatures to a very mild 18 Celsius, but it will be another blustery day. Heading into the weekend comes a bit of a change. Winds become westerly, chillier conditions, and it's looking unsettled. So this is Saturday. We'll have showers, some longer spells of rain, and it's chilly enough that it will bring some winteriness to the hills. So all change again after tomorrow, Laura.
Well, let's just enjoy tomorrow then. Thank you, Gillian. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. Graham Stewart will be here with your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join him then if you can. In the meantime, from all of us here, do enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.